Welcome to my channel. Matthew Bryant was a popular landlord in a Kent city center pub. When a figure from his past turned up making wild allegations, he thought that calling the police would be the best approach. Matthew could never have known that on this late summer's evening, he'd be brutally attacked right outside his pub and be left fighting for his life. The Hare and Hounds pub in Maidstone has quite a history. In September 1975, a bomb was placed outside the pub by the IRA. In August 2022, when 47-year-old Andrew Loosely, a dad of 5, was killed by 18-year-old Josh Gibbs outside the pub. Gibbs just threw one punch at an unsuspecting Andrew, who fell straight to the ground, suffering a fractured skull and brain damage. He never recovered from his injuries, dying in hospital 2 days later. Incidentally, his killer, Gibbs, who ran away from the scene, was eventually sentenced to just 3 years and 8 months in a young offenders institution. A ridiculously lenient sentence for a man who caused so much grief for so many people. The landlord of the pub, Matthew Bryant, was with Andrew, providing first aid and calling the ambulance. He could never have known that just over a year later, he too would be killed outside his own pub. When we pick up the story on the 11th of September 2023, Matthew and his wife Caroline had been running the Hare and Hounds for 8 years, and Matthew had a lifetime of expertise in the hospitality business. He was a very popular, fair, and super hardworking landlord. Her 5-year-old Stephanie Langley had once been Matthew Bryant's sister-in-law, but they hadn't seen each other since around the turn of the century, over 20 years. Her mom of 2, Stephanie, seemed to absolutely loathe Matthew, telling her children that he carried out some sort of sexual attack years before on a friend of hers. I should say here and make it very, very clear, there is no record of any such attack ever having taken place. Stephanie had an interesting background. She'd been sent to prison in March 1996 for smuggling drugs into the UK. Upon her release in 2001, she started a new life, living in Maidstone with her parents, and began a relationship with a local man connected to the East Sutton Park prison, where she had served her prison sentence. But for over 20 years, Matthew hadn't seen his former sister-in-law until in May 2023. For whatever reason, Stephanie decided to head to the Hare and Hounds. But the meeting didn't go well. When at the pub, she became angry during an encounter with Matthew. It was his pub, and when she started making threats against him, he didn't need this, and he rightly told her to leave, which she did. Then, on the 11th September 2023, Stephanie's son, Cameron, told her that he'll be playing Paul at Matthew's pub. She replied, "Enjoy your pool," and later she told him, "I'll see you there. Crazy mom, remember?" And Stephanie did turn up at the pub that evening. CCTV captured her arriving at the Hare and Hounds at 5:53 p.m. and being served a drink by Matthew, who joined her at a table. But while Matthew was perfectly reasonable, the situation soon deteriorated, as Stephanie started once again acting in a very unpleasant manner. She tried to knock Matthew's phone out of his hand whilst he was serving a customer, someone who she then turned around to and told them, "Get a drink while he is still alive." Matthew's wife, Caroline, who didn't know Stephanie but could see she was trouble, told her to leave the pub and asked her husband to phone the police. This was an unpleasant situation, but both Caroline and Matthew had been in the pub business long enough to know how to deal effectively with problem customers like Stephanie. Stephanie did as she was told, but she calmly told Matthew, "You're dead tonight." She then drove her car the few minutes walk to Maidstone East Trade Station and left it parked there, the hazard lights flashing before she made her way back to the pub. It was now 6:05 p.m., and Matthew was outside the pub on the phone to the police, where he told the operator in a very calm tone that his former sister-in-law had threatened to kill him today. He said, "She is coming intentionally," had a whiskey, sat down and said, "I'm going to have you killed. I don't want to be told I'm going to be killed. I just sat down out of politeness. But she said to me 3 times, 'I'm going to have you killed.' How can you respond to that?" He also spoke about the incident back in May, where he said that Stephanie was really gunning for him, but he hadn't reported the events of that day, as he hadn't taken it seriously. He was very open in telling the operator that Stephanie had accused him of violence years before, but he said this wasn't true. And as I said, there were no police records at all of any such events taking place. But at that very moment, Stephanie arrived back at the scene. Matthew said, "Hang on a tick to the operator. Would you like to speak to her?" He then turned to Stephanie and said, "I've got the police on the phone," but Stephanie knocked the phone out of his hand. And as Matthew bent down to pick it up, Stephanie attacked him with a knife that she pulled from her pocket. She stabbed him in the back twice before striking a fatal blow to his chest, with this final 20 centimeters deep wound later found to have gone through his heart and his liver. As she did so, she shouted at him, "I told you I would stab you." A few seconds later, Matthew could be heard telling the operator, "I've just been stabbed," while shocked customers and his wife went to his aid. And yet, whilst Caroline was watching her husband clearly fighting for his life, and others were doing all they could to help, Stephanie Langley just stood by, encouraging others not to do anything to help Matthew. And she kept ranting that she was pleased she had stabbed him. He deserved to die, and she was happy to go to prison for her actions. The emergency services were seen on the scene, and paramedics did all they could, but Matthew's injuries were just too severe. A nephew lost his life at his own pub, eventually being declared dead at the scene just before 6:50 p.m. He was just 52 when he died, and Stephanie's behavior during this time was captured on body video footage recorded by police, which showed her shouting, "Get away from me! I want to stab him! I killed him! I don't care! I want him dead! I'm just so happy! I hate him so much! I hope he dies!" And soon afterwards, when she was being taken away in the police car. Just survived Stephanie. Obviously you can say what you want, but you are under caution. Okay, I don't care. Okay, I will tell you exactly as it happened. I took a knife, I killed him. I don't care. Out. And later, when she learned of his death at the police station, she said, "I'm glad he's dead." The trial took place at Maidstone Crown Court. Although Stephanie Langley accepted causing the injuries to Matthew and admitted an offense for possessing a bladed article, she also denied manslaughter, saying she'd acted in self-defense by getting the knife after she said that Matthew Bryant threatened to find her teenage daughter. During cross-examination, Stephanie denied she'd intended to cause his death, or that she was pleased she had done so. She said, "It's awful. I wasn't in my right mind. I was beside myself. I was hysterical. I wasn't in my right frame of mind. This is not me. This is not how I behave. It's horrible." Accepting that the CCTV footage looked like she'd attacked him, she told the jury, "I don't really have any recollection of it. It's an awful act. It's not deliberate. It's an awful, heinous act. I just lost control." Asked why she decided to visit the Heron Hound, she told the court it was to speak to her son Cameron, who often played Paul there with his girlfriend, to make it clear she did not want him going to the pub or to have Matthew Bryant in their lives any longer. The jurors were told that the killing was no chance meeting, but a deliberate and intentional decision from Stephanie to return to the pub armed with the largest knife taken from a block in her kitchen. Even her clothing suggested strongly that the attack was premeditated. She wore a thick padded gill worn over a knee-length dress, despite the fact it was a warm late summer's day, as it had deep pockets in which to hide her weapon. In court, it was made clear that Stephanie was an intelligent woman, but it seems heavy drinking and some other negative events in her life may have contributed to her actions. The court heard that in the weeks leading up to the murder, her life was on a downward spiral, as she dealt with numerous family issues and financial struggles while seeking help for her daily drinking habit. And it seems by the time she carried out the attack, the focal point for her rage had become Matthew Bryant. Jurors didn't believe her claim of self-defense, and she was found guilty of murder. She showed little emotion as she was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 24 years, meaning that if she's ever released, she'll be almost 80. The judge told her that she'd acted out of callous revenge after the seeds had lain dormant in her mind for more than 2 decades, and he told her that at the trial, she tried to justify and explain the unexplainable. The motive for the murder of Matthew Bryant was revenge. She said, "It's clear that you held a belief that he'd been violent. That was your belief. You believed that he'd attacked a friend of yours over 20 years before. There is no evidence that he did that. But what I can be sure of is that what happened was all to do with revenge. You are a highly intelligent woman, but a manipulative one who has given a lying account. You showed no remorse and carried on protesting to police that you hoped he would die, and you had done it because of what you believed." Matthew's widow, Caroline, spoke of Matthew's loving and supportive nature, and she was appalled that Stephanie had made unsubstantiated allegations about Matthew, which dragged his name through the mud. She told of her desperate attempts to keep her husband alive as he lay in the street, saying, "I'm scared to shut my eyes because all I see is Matt lying on that road. When I went to help Matt, he turned to me and she put the knife in him. I always see the look on his face the moment she put the knife in him. It was like he was saying, 'Help me.' I remember asking him to wake up, but he just lay there lifeless. I'll never forget the way he looked at me in that moment." The following day, the couple were meant to be celebrating the anniversary in Paris. Caroline continued, I remember shaking him, saying, "Wake up, wake up, we're going to Paris tomorrow." He never did wake up. She continued, "That horrible evening, Matt was taken from me. Part of me went with him. My heart feels so empty. I lost my soulmate, my best friend, the love of my life. The day she took my Matt away, she took me too. My heart will never repair because it's just too broken. I love Matt and just want him back. I cannot see my life without him." And Matthew's 80-year-old mom, Valerie, movingly told how her son's death had affected her. She told how she screamed, shouted, and cried when her daughter told her the terrible news. "He shouldn't have died before me. Your children don't," she told the court, when his dad, Alan, died from cancer 20 years ago. "Matthew promised to look out for me and take care of me. And bless him, he has done more than anyone knows. I've lost not only my loving son, but also the only man in my life. He would help anyone in trouble, was popular and respected. I've always deeply loved him, and will never ever get over not seeing him again. She not only murdered my son, but she's also stabbed me through my heart. God bless my Matthew." A terrible story, isn't it? And as we finish today, of course, our hearts go out to the family and friends of Matthew Bryant. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Please do like and subscribe.